When I first started my wedding photography business back in 2011, I made just $5,000 in my business. Now, I bring in multiple six figures per year while working only 30-hour weeks serving my dream couples. I'm here to help you discover that it's so possible to have what you want when you want in your business so that you can create the life you've always dreamed of and deserve.
All right. Welcome back to the podcast.
Okay, I'm going to use my regular voice now. I'm just so excited. I'm feeling super, super hyper because I've been wanting to record this episode for a while. It's more of a personal update episode, and I just get to chat more about life things, like regular life stuff. We get to connect over, and we get to pause on business and photography and all of that and just connect on another level. So today I'm going to talk to you about two big exciting things that I have manifested in my life. And you probably could tell from the title that one of them, in case you didn't know already, I announced it on Instagram today. Today is September 22nd, that Rory and I are pregnant and we are expecting a little one, a baby, February 28th, 2022. So right now I'm 17 weeks pregnant. And for those of you that literally have not been pregnant before, I know you're like 17 weeks. What the fuck is that? You're trying to calculate it in your head of how many months is Sara? Because when people used to tell me that before I was pregnant, I'd be like, why are they telling me in weeks? Can you tell me in months? So it's 4 months, people. It's 4 months. So I am just so excited to tell you how I manifested a baby, okay, and also my dream car, which you guys probably have seen if you hang out on Instagram with me. If you don't hang out on Instagram with me yet, it's Sara Monika Photo, so make sure you check me out there, Sara no H, Monika with a K, and let me know that you found me through the podcast and we can connect. But I manifested my dream car finally, my Beamer, after so many years of dreaming about it. So I'm just going to talk about all of that in this episode because I'm also passionate about the topic of manifesting, since I do use it to get a lot of things that I want in my life. I have this whole motto that I've had since I was younger. I don't remember where it came from or where this energy came from, but just this idea and energy and motto of I get what I want. And it just even saying that mantra really gives me this boost of energy, this confidence, this kind of taking my own power and being yeah, I get what I want and I'm going to make it happen and I'm going to do what I want to do to make it happen. And part of that is manifesting. So for those of you that either have tried manifesting before and it's worked for you and you're like, oh yeah, that's totally my jam. Or for those of you that, haven't tried manifesting before or have, and you're like, it's a total crock of shit. I don't believe in it, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. This episode isn't I'm not only talking about manifesting. I'm going to just give you a life update and just tell you the stories around how these two amazing things came into my life. And then you can take from it what you want about if you want to try on manifesting again or not. And for those of you that are like, yeah, manifesting is my jam, then you will love these stories too, because it'll just give you that reminder that maybe something that you have wanted to manifest in your life, maybe you've kind of lost hope on it. And maybe just my tricks of how I manifest in my life can help you I'm saying manifest way too much. Holy crap. Okay. So, and as I'm saying that, I'm seeing 333. So the universe is like, yeah, Sara, get on with it. People want to hear the stories. Okay. So first things first, I'm going to talk about my dream car first, because that's the order of events that happened. I got my dream car first, and then, I manifested a baby first. Okay, let's talk about that then. Oh my God, it's so funny. I'm thinking about it in the terms of when did I announce on Instagram of my dreams that came true? And of course I announced the car first because we hadn't announced the baby until 4 months along. So, okay, let's talk about baby first. So basically, Rory and I, of course, with me being a wedding photographer, we really wanted to make sure that we had an off-season baby, because I don't want to cancel on any of my wedding clients. That would be obviously best case scenario. Of course, things can be out of our control, all of that, right? But again, I'm the type of person that believes and I get what I want and I manifest what I want. And so we really wanted an off-season baby. So we decided in the beginning of 2021 that I was going to get off birth control. I got off of it New Year's. And then we're like, okay, in the next little window of a while, we are going to try because it's going to give us our off-season baby. And so what I was doing was making sure that I wasn't attached to the idea. So sometimes we want something so badly that we're just like, it has to happen. I want to make sure I make it happen. And we create this stressful energy around it. And I know because I do that. I do that in my life and my business too. And then what ends up happening is that the thing doesn't actually come true. It doesn't come into our reality. So what I wanted to make sure to do was to approach this whole situation in a calm way. Whatever happens, happens, go with the flow. And typically that is my what's called attitude in life, or in general. I'm very much go with the flow person, but sometimes some things I do want so badly and I just kind of like grip onto it and create the stressful energy around it. But what I've learned is that it literally never works in my favor. I end up being stressed and feeling overwhelmed, and then I actually don't attract the thing that I want. So in this situation, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to make this whole baby making experience like a whole stressful situation. I want to make sure it's just a calm, relaxed, fun time. I want to make sure the soul knows that they're coming into a calm, peaceful, welcoming environment where whatever happens in life is okay. Let's go with the flow, that kind of vibe, right? And so we started trying, and I think it was so weird actually because I was taking these ovulation strips that my friend gave me. And basically what you do is you pee on this little strip and it tells you if you're ovulating or not. And the weirdest thing happened was that for literally 3 months straight, I was never ovulating. And I never stressed about it. I never had this feeling of like, oh my God, why am I not ovulating? Like, what's happening, right? I was just like, okay, that's just what's happening. Whatever. Literally, I know that whatever is meant to happen will happen. I'm not going to put any stress around it. And then what ended up happening was, I think this was June. Okay, so we're about 3 or 4 months into trying, and June comes around. And I told myself that, okay, if I've been like peeing on these ovulation strips and I've never ovulated in 3 to 4 months, maybe it's time to see a fertility specialist, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that if after June we're not pregnant yet. And I didn't put any stress on it. And then what ended up happening was I got an email in my inbox from one of my favorite humans that just helps me a lot on my healing journey. She helps me unblock my chakras. I've had her on the podcast. Her name is Stephanie Williams Morrison, and she's just an incredible healing soul that just offers her help to the world in this way. And her email popped into my inbox saying that she's offering this full moon halo that she does. She used to offer them in person, but throughout COVID, she does them virtually. And this one specifically was called the Pelvic Portal, where it was all about connecting to your womb and your, your root chakra and your sacral chakra and all of that. And I was like, whoa, no way. And I literally took that as a sign, as like, oh my gosh, maybe I just need to like connect more with like my womb space and that chakra. Maybe I'm just not as connected. Maybe that's why it's not happening. And I knew intuitively, I'm like, boom, this is exactly what's meant for me right now. So I signed up, and I think it was like, I don't even know how far into it I signed up, but maybe it was like a week and a half later she was hosting it. So after that time passed, I'm setting up my laptop in my little cozy area. I created like this nice cozy area with candles, with like sage, all this stuff, just to create like a nice spiritual cozy environment. And she starts off this amazing virtual pelvic portal. And throughout it, I'm just, connecting with myself, with my body, through like different, she made us like dance in a very like in a very free flowing way where she's like, just move without judgment, just move how your body wants you to move and tap into your feminine energy. So we were just kind of like dancing, and you can have your camera on or off, whatever you wanted to do. And I'm just like dancing, connecting with my body, with my soul that way. And then later for the second half of the portion, after we've meditated a bit and all that kind of stuff, she's like, okay, it's time to do a womb massage. So she's like, grab some oil, get really comfortable, and just start massaging your womb area in between your belly button and your pom pom. That's just how I'm saying it right now. And just start connecting with your womb. And she just gave us certain prompts of how to connect with our womb as we're massaging it. And basically, in that one moment, something told me, take a pregnancy test. Like in that exact moment. And I'm at home, Rory's at yoga, and I'm like, okay. So I go to the bathroom, piss on a little stick, and I peed on like one of those like little strips. It's like a box of like 30 ovulation strips and maybe 30 pregnancy tests, something like that. So it was one of those like just tiny strips. And I pee on it and I leave it in the bathroom. I go back into the womb massage thing because I know it's going to take a couple minutes. And then I'm like, all like, okay, well, I want to go check it. So I go to the bathroom and I'm looking at it and I'm like, what? This is different because I've taken like maybe 10 pregnancy tests before. And I'm like, wait, 2 lines. I'm used to seeing 1 line. I'm like, 2 lines? Wait, what is that? And I quickly check the instructions on the box and they're like 2 lines pregnant. And I'm like staring at the stick. I'm like, 2 lines, 2 lines. I'm like, 2 lines. Oh my God. I literally start shaking. And I'm like, oh my God, I see 11:11 right now as I'm recording this. That's crazy. I'm like shaking and I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. I've connected to my womb. I've connected to like my spirit baby. It's all happening. This is crazy. And Rory's at yoga. So I can't even focus for the rest of this little pelvic portal halo. I'm just like, I turned my camera off for the virtual hangout. And I'm just there like crying with gratitude and excitement. And I can't even focus anymore on what's happening. I'm like, no, I've already got everything I needed out of this. I'm just here like in gratitude. And now I'm just excited for Rory to get home, for me to tell him. But I'm like, okay, how am I going to tell him? So I'll tell you how I told him in a second. But yeah, basically how incredible of a story is that it's just like these like all these little signs from the universe like led me to finding out in that way. I just think it's just so like, what are the chances that I'm doing like a pelvic portal connecting to your womb spiritual practice, and I find something tells me in that moment to take a pregnancy test, and that's how I find out. I think it's just so incredible, so beautiful. And I'm so grateful that Rory and I only had to try for 3 to 4 months for us to get pregnant. And we were able to get pregnant exactly when we wanted to. We are due February 28th, 2022. So it gives me 2 full months off doing nothing, no weddings, no shoots, to transition into mom life and all of that. So I'm really, really grateful about that. And for those of you that are on a different journey, right, and are having, a trickier time, or you haven't started yet, any of that, I do want to recommend a book to you that I read late 2020, that could actually help you figure out why maybe it's not happening and on a spiritual level. And this read was fascinating to me, and it's what helped me relax so much throughout this whole process and just trust that things will unfold as they're meant to unfold. And it made the process so much more peaceful, fun, enjoyable, and created the exact results that we wanted. So if you haven't heard of this might be the resource that you're meant to hear about right now and grab. So the book is called Spirit Babies, and it just talks about energetically what your spirit baby that's waiting to come into your life, into your world, needs from you in order to feel like it's time for them to come. And there's so much more about this stuff in the book. I can't just explain it in one sentence. But it's an amazing resource, and it's actually not that big of a read too. So it's a really, really nice read to just dive into on like a cool, crisp fall day, fall evening. I always read it at night before bed with like a warm lavender tea, a candle. It was just so relaxing and so nice. And I actually felt like I was connecting with my future spirit baby, listening intuitively to what they needed. And I did end up going through with some chakra unblocking to prep myself to be ready to be a mom. And I did that with Stephanie Williams Morrison. Again, she is incredible. So I did do that work. And I do believe that that kind of stuff really does add up because you energetically want to be ready to welcome this new soul into the world. So I hope that that helps. And I hope that that my story of how I was able to just manifest a baby coming into our life at the right time, exactly when we wanted it to, will inspire you in some way that maybe energetically you do have more control over your results than maybe you think. So going back to how I told Rory, so basically he came home from yoga and I was so excited. I'm the type of person that if I have something big to share with someone, it's so hard for me to like hold it in. But I'm like, no, I want to make sure it's like recorded in a video or something, right? So he came home from yoga. I'm like, oh, you must be hungry. I'm just going to go run out and get some like food for us. And I said this because I wanted to go get a proper pregnancy test, like a clear blue and one that tells you how far along you are. So I can just double check with like a really good test, right? And he's like, oh, let me come with you. And I'm like, oh, no, it's okay. I'll just go quickly. You shower, everything. He's like, no, but I'll go with you. Because we always usually like to go get food together. It's just extra time we get to spend together in the car and whatever. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. So now I'm like in my head, I'm like, okay, Sara, you manifested this. You can manifest figuring out how to get a proper pregnancy test while you're out with him secretly too. So we're waiting for our pizza in the parking lot. And I'm like thinking, how am I going to make this happen? And then we get our pizza. We start driving home. And then in the moment, I'm like, oh, Rory, wait. I forgot. I just ran out of deodorant. I just need to like jump into the store, quickly grab some. Can you just like pull into the store and I'll quickly go in? He's like, yeah, no problem. And I know Rory that if it's me going to the store for one quick, like boring thing, he's not going to come in with me. He's just going to hang out on his phone, watch YouTube or something. So I'm like, yes, this is perfect. So he literally just like dropped me off. I ran into the store. Of course, I didn't go to get deodorant. I went straight to get a pregnancy test, popped it in my purse. Well, paid for it, popped it in my purse. And then we drove home. And then when we get home, I'm like, oh, I just have to pee. And of course, like we're both starving. We have this hot, nice pizza ready to go. We're ready to like Netflix and watch something. And I'm just like, I just have to go pee. So I go upstairs, pee on the stick, and I'm waiting. So it takes longer than like the amount of time you actually have to go pee. So I know he's probably wondering, oh my God, what's taking here so long? So then I'm waiting, and it's positive. And I'm like, oh my God, I start shaking even more. I'm so excited. I'm like, okay, wait, how am I going to tell him now? I want to make sure it's on video. So the first thing that I thought of was earlier that day, he actually took some photos of me, some branding photos, on my camera. And I'm like, oh, okay. What if I go to my office, take my camera, put the pregnancy test on the floor, take a photo of the pregnancy test, and then I'll go downstairs and just have him go through the photos and ask him which one's his favorite from that day. But I'm like, but shit, like he's hungry, like he just wants to eat. That's the last thing he's going to want to do. But I'm like, whatever. I'll just like figure it out. I'll pretend it's like a reel or like a TikTok funny thing that I'm doing with him. So I go downstairs, I with my camera, with the photo in the camera already of the pregnancy test. I put my, my phone down, and it's recording. And I'm like, I know you're hungry, but like, I just want to do a quick, funny, like thing I saw on TikTok, but it's like a little thing you need to do. He's like, okay. And I could tell he's like, I don't want to do this. I'm just hungry. But I'm like, just do this. And then he's like, okay, what do I do? I'm like, okay, just go through these photos and pick which one is your favorite. And so I set it up so there's like 5 photos that he has to go through until he sees the pregnancy photo. And so he's going through them like quickly. He's like, okay, I'm just gonna have to pick one. And then he sees it. He's like, what? Oh my God. And then we like embrace, and like I literally shed a tear or two, and I'm shaking, and like we're just like, oh my God. Like it was just like the most magical moment. And I'm so happy I have it on video. And yeah. So that is the story of how we manifested a baby, how we found out, all of that. And so that was, I think, mid-June 2021 that we found out. And now it's September 22nd. So I'm like almost halfway through my pregnancy, and it's like, whoa, that's so quick. Where's the time going? All right. Next, let me tell you about my Beamer, my dream car manifestation. So I've wanted a sports car for so long, but like every time it came time to like either renew my lease or get a new car, I mean, years ago, like 10 years ago, it wasn't in the budget for me. And then about 6 years or what was it, 8 years ago, again, it wasn't the priority, like money wise. I wanted to keep reinvesting in my business and in the house. We did some renovations and stuff. Um, and every time after that, there was one chance where I was able to get either my dream car or another SUV. So I don't know if you guys remember when I had my brown Sportage. Rory used to call it shit brown because brown's my favorite color. And he's like, why is shit brown your favorite color? And like he literally like called it the shit brown car because it looked like shit brown. But to me, it looked beautiful. I love it. Anyway, so I got that Sportage SUV, and I could have got my BMW then, but I was like, oh, but no, like it's just a little bit more money, and like it's not the like logical financial decision because a car isn't like an asset that's appreciating. It's obviously depreciating, right? So that was me being all responsible, whatever, all that stuff. Even though we had the money for it, even though it would have been a fine, responsible decision, I was just being extra cautious, extra responsible. But then came the time when, so basically in 2020, when COVID first started, February of 2020 was when my lease was like completed with that shit brown SUV, my Sportage, my amazing brown Sportage. And I was like, this is like, I was grateful. I'm like, this is amazing timing. Like, I don't have to make these payments on a car that I'm hardly going to use because we're in a freaking pandemic. So I was using it way less, right? So I got to give up that lease and not have any payments, but we still wanted like some kind of little second car in case we both needed to be out of the house at the same time. So we ended up buying his mom's used car that was like a 10-year-old car for like a handful of thousands of dollars. And I think it was $8,000 or something. So we just paid them cash, $8,000. And we had our we called it the COVID car because it was just like an old 10-year-old car that just got you from point A to B. It's exactly what we needed at that time. I didn't need anything fancy or anything else, right? So it was literally perfect. And then 2021 rolls around where, you know, weddings are picking up. It's, I think it was like starting June. Things were looking up, things were picking up, vaccines were coming out. And we can actually see almost an end to this whole situation, right? And also on top of that, we were planning on having a family, and I'm like, oh, like I feel like this is like my window of time to like have fun with my sports car that I want to have before we have kids and all of that, right? But then I'm thinking, well, no, like I don't want the fun to stop when we have kids. Like I still want to be able to like have my dream car and all of that. So we were basically able to decide because we have two cars, and we call Rory's car is an SUV, and we're keeping that one around. And it's like a really great SUV, super big, roomy, comfortable, safe, all of that. So we're like, okay, cool. That's going to be like the kid's car. And then and then now we're like, okay, let's make that dream car happen for you, Sara. Like both of us are like, I think it's time. And we don't have to, not get it because we're about to start a family. We can just have the fun car, the sports car, right? And then also the SUV for whenever we have to drive the kid or kids around anywhere. So it felt really right. Like the timing just felt right. We're like, okay, let's sell the little COVID car. Let's start researching your dream car. And especially because we've done really, really well with like saving over the years. And I was able to have multiple income streams in 2020, which helped me out a lot with my income and kind of getting my business through the pandemic. I did make 50% less than I normally do, but it was still, we were still in a really good position because we've had savings from beforehand. And on top of that, 2021 has been really, really good for me with all of the income streams that I've built over time, all thanks to me having more time through outsourcing, as you know, right? Because the more I outsource tasks that other people can do for me just as well as I can, the more time I have to create other income streams like teaching, right? And taking on more shoots and more weddings that actually bring in income. So 2021 financially was looking really, really well for us, and we're still in a pandemic. So we're like, wow, like, okay, Sara, you made this happen in your business, in our lives. Like, let's celebrate with your dream car. So that's what we decided on. And so one weekend, I think it was like the week before a weekend that I had free in the summer from weddings, I'm like, Rory, let's go let's go like shopping for cars. Like we haven't at all went shopping for any dream cars of mine. And I'm like, let's just make the first move and just start looking, right? And that was my intention, to just start looking. So I wasn't attached to like get something now and soon and whatever. I was just going with the flow and going with my instinct. And my instinct was telling me to just start looking. So Rory's like, okay, cool. So Sara, I know you want your Beamer, but what if we just have a look at other luxury sports cars, and maybe you'll find something you like more, because it's good to like kind of like broaden your horizons to see what else is out there, so you know you make the right decision for you. I'm like, oh yeah, totally down for that. I cannot complain about looking at more cars. I freaking love cars. So we started off at Mercedes, and oh my gosh, we wanted a lightly used car, by the way. That's what I wanted to also mention. We didn't want to buy new off the lot, and we didn't want to lease, because I've leased before and it just feels like you're just like, you know, giving them all this money and then you're giving up this car and you have nothing to show for it, right? And then if you buy new, it's like right when you drive it off the lot, it depreciates so much. So I wanted something really lightly used that was like maybe 1 to 4 years old, that, you know, we didn't have to pay for the depreciation. So we went into Mercedes and we're like, okay, this is what we're looking for. Lightly used, this budget, and that's what we're looking for. And so I test drove, I think it was 2 different Mercedes models, and both of them drove so amazingly. Like the power on them is incredible, and I had so much fun driving them. But then the interior of them, the console didn't feel intuitive to me. It didn't feel like it was like it fit. I don't know how to explain it. And I also, when I drive, I love to have my right hand on the stick. I don't know if anyone else loves doing that, but it's like such a nice resting place to just have it on the stick thing. And it was in a weird spot. Actually, they don't even have a stick thing. That's what it was. They don't even have one. They have like something else that you do. And so I'm like, oh, where's my hand go? Like, I'm not used to this. And the console wasn't even touch screen. You have to use like this tracking pad. That for me felt more dangerous, because it felt like I would be more distracted driving if I used it. So I didn't like that. I also didn't like the interior as much, the color of the outside and inside. And for those of you that know me well, you know that I'm very sensitive to like color, and whatever colors are around me, it's the energy that I feel. So to me, color in a vehicle is so important. Like I told you, brown is my favorite color. It like grounds me. I don't know what it is about it. It's like the earth. So my last car, the Sportage that I had, was brown exterior, brown interior. And it just felt so nice, so grounded, all that stuff. So it was important to me that I like the color of the interior and the exterior of the vehicle that I bought. And worst case scenario, I'm like, okay, worst case scenario, I will just make sure I like the interior, and I can always just paint the exterior to whatever color I wanted. So we go inside after test driving. The guy's like, okay, so what do you think? And I'm like, oh man, drive's amazing, but something, I don't like the console, basically everything I just told you. And I'm like, oh, and it doesn't come in the colors that I want, right? And of course, he's like looking at me like I'm just this like, I don't know, he's probably just stereotyping, or maybe that was me projecting, but he's like, so what do you care about more, performance or looks, right? And I'm just like, what the F is that comment all about? And I was like, I care about it all. I want it all. And I know I can have it all. And he's like, okay, well, you know, you want something lightly used. So, you know, there's less of that on the market, less chances. I'm like, I know, but I want it all. And I think I can find it. He's like, well, what is it that you want? And I'm like, I want a blue exterior, brown interior, drives amazing with like just sporty driving, really good, like horsepower, all of that, and a really sick sound system. That's what I want. He's like, okay, okay, well, like good luck. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just grab your card and let us know if anything pops up that's kind of like that in as a used vehicle. He's like, okay, sounds good. And we leave that place. Then our next stop was to go to Genesis because Rory heard like really great things about the vehicles and how this brand is just starting up, so you can actually get kind of more bang for your buck. And it's pretty much like a fully loaded luxury vehicle, but priced much less than normal luxury vehicles such as Mercedes. So I'm like, okay, yeah, why not? Let's try it out. The car is beautiful. The interior is like literally just delicious. Like that's how I can explain it. And it drives so amazingly. So I had a really great experience there, but then something felt off still. And on top of that, it was just above our budget by like a little bit. So I was like, okay, if it goes above, like this does have a lot and everything, but I'm like, do I need all these extra things? That's kind of where my head was at. And then finally that day, the third stop for us was BMW. And we've been having so much fun test driving all these other cars that it was kind of nearing the end of the day. So I think the BMW dealership was closing at 6:30 that night, and we got there at 6. And I'm just like, oh, well, like I just have to like just get BMW in today. I was just too excited to see the BMWs. So basically we get there at around 6, half an hour before closing. I walk into the dealership and guess what I see? A blue BMW, brown interior, sick sound system, because it's all noted on the specs of the car, right? Sick sound system, drives amazing. It's an xDrive 330i BMW, and it's lightly used. 20,000 kilometers on it only, 1 year old, and it was basically a vehicle that was leased by a BMW employee, and that's why I had so few kilometers on it. So literally, like how much of a manifestation is that? I said it at Mercedes. I was like, I know I can have it all and I want it all. And he's like, well, what is it? What is it? What is it all? What do you want? And I said everything. I listed everything specifically. And we walk into BMW and it's sitting right there, and it was within our budget. And I'm like, oh my God, is this happening? And I'm like, this is it. This is my baby. It's been waiting here for me. I literally said that to the car. And then one of the sales reps comes around, and he didn't see my excitement or anything. He came around the corner. He's like, oh, how are you guys doing? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, good. Like, I want to test drive this car. And he's like, oh, okay. He didn't even ask me any like questions. He didn't even try to see if we would actually be able to afford the vehicle, all of that information, right? He's like, oh, okay, no problem. Let me just try to get it out of the dealership for you so you can test drive it. So he would literally have to try and move another car from the inside of a dealership and then move that one out. It was like complicated. Half an hour before close, I'm like, what? This guy is amazing. Like, I appreciate him that he just like cares so much for me to test drive this car, like, and just trusts me so much. I'm like, whoa, I feel like this is all just like meant to be. And he comes back after a couple minutes and they couldn't find the keys to the other car that was in the way. So he's like, I'm sorry, like I wish you could test drive it, but maybe you can test drive a similar car. It's outside. And I'm like, let's do it. So it was basically the same. Everything was the same except the coloring and the sound system. So the performance of the car was the same. So I test drove it and I'm like, I feel at home. Like, this is it. Like, my little stick is there on the right. I can rest my hand there. The driving is amazing. The handling is amazing. I feel like one with the car. Like, I don't feel awkward in it. I feel like I can safely and confidently drive the car. And I just felt so good. And so we get back and he's like, how's the drive? I'm like, amazing. We're just gonna, obviously like think about it. So I go to sleep that night and I'm like dreaming about my decision. Because all I could think of is that car is sitting there waiting for me and anyone could snag it at any point. And I'm dreaming about all the pros and cons of all these different cars. And I wake up clear. I wake up just knowing. I'm like, that's my car. I know it. I want it. Everything is just too perfect for it to not be mine. It was meant for me. And so we called the dealership and we're like, yeah, we actually we want to purchase that car. And he said that, he's like, oh yeah, he's like, okay, perfect. Okay, let's get everything sorted. By the way, how easy of a sale was that for him? That was kind of fun to give someone that easy of a sale. He's like, okay, we're going to just put everything together. We're going to make this happen. I'll call you in a bit. So when he calls us in a bit, he actually tells us that we called at the perfect time because soon after us, someone else called and they wanted that exact car too. And so they're like, sorry, it's already reserved. Someone's already purchasing it. So if I literally had thought about it for much longer or like overthought it, went into like all this like logical thinking and overthinking, I could have missed out on it. But I just went with my gut, with my intuition, just knowing it was sitting there waiting for me. It was literally looking at me being like, hi, Sara, let's hang out. Like, I'm such a nerd. Oh my God. And we bought it over the phone. We went, picked it up that Wednesday. So 3 days later, and it was mine. So that is the story of how I manifested my dream car with it literally just sitting there waiting for me at the right time in my life. And all of that. So I hope that you enjoyed that. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned from manifesting actually is to not be overly attached to the thing that you want and not overly eager or desperate for it. There's such power in neutrality, in the feeling and emotion of, if I get it, cool. If I don't get it, I'm cool too. It's kind of like the feeling of feeling complete without it being in your life, but putting out the vibration of, I like it and I want it in a non-desperate way. So that works really, really well for me. Another thing that I've learned about myself recently is, I don't know if you've heard of human design, but I had like a human design reading. It's based on your birth time and birth location, and you get a whole kind of like chart created which tells you all sorts of things about your characteristics, your what's it called, your oh my God, your strengths, your weaknesses, and how to play towards both of them to make them work for you in your life, all these things. And I've learned about myself, one thing that's very interesting is that I'm meant to be a specific manifester, which means that I need to tell the universe and declare what I want, exactly what I want, and when I want it. And it's been, now looking back in my life with when I've manifested like bigger things, for example, this BMW, it's so true. I literally spelt it out to the universe, exactly what I want, and it delivered. And as soon as I'm too general about what I want, like, oh, I want to be successful in my business, let's just say, it's like, well, what is that specifically? Like, what is it? How many clients? How much money? When? What date? Right? So those types of things. So that's something that I found so interesting about learning about my chart. And I would highly suggest getting a reading done for your human sign if you're into that kind of thing, because it just gives you clarity on like what your superpowers are in your life. And so some other people are total opposite. They're meant to be general manifestors because for them, being too specific actually stresses them out too much, because then they're like, oh my gosh, if it doesn't happen exactly this way, like if I don't get this thing, then I've done something wrong. And then when they create that negative stressed energy, they actually don't manifest. So for them, being a general manifester puts them in the energy state of being able to manifest easier, if that makes sense. So right now, you even listening, you could have been like, you could even intuitively know, you're like, oh yeah, I am a general manifester, or I am a specific manifester. So that is something really fun that I've learned on my journey as well. And yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed this personal update. If you did, shoot me a DM on Instagram, Sara Monika Photo. Let me know. Let me know if you like me talking about manifesting, because it is a topic that I love. It is a superpower that I love using in my life and business that helps me get what I want when I want, right? And let me know also if you've had similar experiences recently of being very specific with what you wanted and actually getting the thing, because I love hearing stories about this. I'd love to have a chat with you on it. So yeah. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I can't wait to connect with you more on the gram. All right, bye. Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning into this episode. If you got value out of it, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Sara Monika Photo. That's Sara no H, Monika with a K photo, to let me know. I get so freaking energized hearing from others that what I've said has had a positive impact on their lives. Also, make sure to hit subscribe to the Shine and Thrive podcast to never miss an episode. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm sending you all the productive vibes your way so you have the best week ever.